Welcome back, everybody, to the Open Teams podcast. With us here, we have two special guests, Samantha and Ari, and we also have Jared and Amir, who will be your hosts. And this episode, we're going to be talking about transgender issues in Palestinian Muslim communities and also in Orthodox Jewish communities. And we have two representatives from both groups who are going to share their experiences. So, Samantha, if you're all right with introducing yourself.
So, hi, my name is Samantha. I am Palestinian American. I've lived in the Palestine, and I've lived also inside of the United States for the vast majority of my life. I don't know. I am a transgender woman. I started transitioning around 2 years ago. I don't know what else to give for that, but like I came from like a Orthodox Sunni Muslim background, I guess I could say, and I'm gonna pass it over to Ari now.
Hi, I'm Ari. I'm actually I use they them pronouns. I've also lived in Palestine for a bit. I'm currently living in the U.S. in North Carolina. And I've known Anna for quite some time, and we grew up together. So we have a pretty similar religious background. I'm more Ashkenazi and you're Sephardi, and like more Sephardi, but we grew up in the same community.
Yeah, for sure.
So slightly different flavors, but more or less the same. Same. A lot of overlap.
Yeah. So I guess my first question, I guess this one's for you, Samantha. Were your parents like family Palestinian refugees? Like, what was their story in 1948?
Okay, so like my grandfather was a refugee. My dad was born in Gaza. He was born in Gaza, and we're like original 48 refugees. Like the actual town specifically my family is from is an area in mainland Israel. I don't know what the place is called, I guess in mainland Israel, but it's actually called Fallujah prior to, if you like read old like stuff like from Benny Morris or Khaled Walidi and stuff like that, you'll find that Walid Khaldi. God, I'm like backwardsing people's names all of a sudden. Anyway, you'll see like there's actually talks of like this area wasn't even like necessarily ethnically cleansed in 1948, but it actually was like a secondary like breaking of the 1949 armistice agreement and whatnot. And it like my family left in I think 1950. So they were like technically Israeli citizens at that point. So like my family, that's kind of like their background. My mom's white, so that's why I'm super fucking white. So there's not to say that white people can't be interesting, but this is not what we're talking about.
So I'm like half Middle Eastern Jewish and half white Jewish. So I relate to the struggle a little bit. Amir, you too also, right?
Yeah, I'm mixed. I'm of mixed heritage as well, on both sides. So yeah, I was wondering, in terms of transitioning and coming in from a religious family, was that something that was difficult for them to accept, or did they kind of go with it and say, okay, we love our child and we want the best for them and we're going to support them in anything that they'll do?
So in my case, like it's very like for one thing, like God, I'm gonna like bring up things that are like really transphobic and shit. Anyway,
yeah, go ahead.
Go. I'll just go right ahead. But yeah, like I have certain family members in my family that are like, yep, we 100% support you. That's awesome. I'm like, thank God I have you in my family. I love you so much. Thank you. And then I have some members of my family who are like desperately trying to get me to like detransition with like whatever means they can. Like they use a lot of like motivated reasoning. Like it always jumps from one thing to the next. Like, oh, look at all these risks that HRT does. I'm like, yep, I know. When I signed the papers to do this, I knew that. And they're like, it's like, well, like, just say you just don't want me to be trans. Don't just like inform me of every risk and telling me how hard it's going to be in life and all that. Like, I know. I don't like. One of the things that was like really difficult for me is that like, you know, I do want to go back to the Middle East at some point in my life, but transitioning is pretty much like put a ginormous pause on that entirely until like I can pass 100% and go fly under the radar. And it's like, I don't know. That's to me, like I have some members of my family that are like, yep, we love you. And I take that to be because like my family is like, I guess like upper class Palestinians. Like we live in the West. Most of my family is highly educated and like education breeds more social liberalism in general.
Sure.
And,
definitely.
I can't say that with every one of my family members, but I definitely know that many of my family members are far more socially progressive than ones that I've talked to inside the Middle East itself, where they are like I got told like from a very young age, like this is like some like I have like tons of like homophobic and transphobic shit burned into my memories. Like there's one family member that was like, no, we throw gays off of mountains here. And I was like, no, I was living in Jordan in the time. And I'm just like, if I had known that actually homosexuality is decriminalized in Jordan, it's not like great there, but like they have gay bars in Jordan, I guess. That's really weird and a whole nother story. But like, if I had known that, I'd be like, wait, no, you don't. This is bullshit. We throw them through conversion therapy. They're a little bit more civilized, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh God,
I feel that pretty hard. I'd honestly not even out. I'm only out to even some of my family. I'm kind of hoping just some of my family picks up on it. I'm like, what more do you want from me? I've changed my name. I dress the way I do. Like, you have literally referred to me as not a girl my entire life, as like not like other girls my entire life. Like, I don't know what you really more you want me to say. But then like those same family members like literally view trans people as like subhuman. I've been told that they bring down the property rate, like the price of the price of property in certain areas. They like 100%. It's like, you know, the trannies make it so that your property loses value. And I'm like,
I mean that's a real thing that happens in America. Like gay people, cisgendered gay people can bring property values up, but trans people, wherever trans people go, the property values tend to decrease.
I love that. I love that for us. Good for us. I love getting us friends.
Y'all are single-handedly fixing the housing problem in America. Good job.
More people friends. It's really fun. 10 out of 10.
It's the new There Goes the Neighborhood. Trans community comes in. It just all lowers the price. Oh God. Kill me now.
But yeah, and so I have some family member that's like supportive. I have some family that knows and then just like doesn't change their behavior at all. Like we'll still just name me and be like, oh, it's just such a hard conversation to have. It's just like very hard for me. And it really depends. It's really funny because when I go to visit my sister, who Anna knows, lives in a community in like Israel, Palestine, like about 45 minutes outside of Jerusalem, called Beit Shemesh. And like I walk around, and whenever I go to her community, I always wear like my full femme Orthodox drag, like skirts to the ground, shirts to my collarbone, and I still have little kids coming up to me and being like, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And I'm like, "I don't know what more to tell you." Like, I can't.
Yeah, your sister is like hers, or their sister is full on ultra Orthodox, like really in it. So,
Oh my god.
Like,
Yeah.
Wild.
in it, like, had a matchmaker and got, like, married after 2 dates type of deal. Like,
Wow.
in it.
Wow.
I
yeah,
love her very much. Of all
I'm
of my
Mormon.
siblings, she probably gets me the most, which is
I think
saying something.
But
I-
that's
I-
really cool. That's really
I do
cool.
feel like and I don't know if you guys feel this being like ex-religious. I feel this being ex-religious is like coming from the perspective of having been a religious person. I feel that sometimes secular people are actually can be very dehumanizing towards religious people.
Mm.
Almost
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I think that's why my sister and I kind of vibe, because she's like, I want what makes you happy. If this is what makes you happy, God bless. And I'm like, if being Orthodox is what makes you happy, God bless. Like, we might not like be on the same path, but like we genuinely want that for each other, which is good.
Very good.
Samantha,
but-
you were gonna share something too. I was
I don't remember.
no worries.
Oh god, like no, like I tend to agree with you about that. Like being non-religious now, like I'm slightly jealous of people that grew up non-religious, like fucking lucky bastards. You never deal with like I don't know what it's like in Jewish cultures, but like hellfire is something that's always brought up in Muslim cultures. Like, oh god, like it's kind of like reading the Dante's Inferno. Like Inferno is like just everything shitty that can happen. It's kind of like Islamic hell. Like there's talks about like, you know, drinking boiling water, and then also like having your skin burned off and then have it taken off and then replaced with fresh skin.
Oh my god,
That's some,
Yeah,
that's
no.
some Prometheus shit.
that's fucked
scary.
up shit. Did they
Well,
tell you that as a kid?
Oh, well, I got told a lot of things about hellfire, but until I actually like read the Quran, I was like, oh my god, that is wild. Apparently there's rivers of heaven and there's rivers of wine in heaven, so you know.
Yeah.
When
So
Luckily, we Jews don't really have a hell. We just sort of.
we do.
I mean, we have a. It's not very well defined, though.
If you talk to the Hasidim, it will.
Yeah, but I don't trust them. I'm reformed.
Yeah, that's where there's like a big gap between people. I feel like because for us, I mean, I think in the modern Orthodox community, hell is not like super important. We're not like talking about it all the time, thankfully, which is like definitely helps. But like it definitely exists if you sin too much. Yeah.
It's more like understanding social norms and being like, oh, you're gay. That's not really acceptable here.
Yeah, it's
But,
not like you're
like,
gonna go to
in a
hell for
very,
being
like-
gay.
But like in a very like side eye, like community judgment, like they're talking about you sort of way.
I feel
But,
like it's
like-
more than that, no? Because it's like you can't, like they're like gay marriage is not a thing. Like it's just, I heard it's a mental illness. It's crazy people.
I mean, the guys at our high school when we got our sex ed were told that if they had gay sex, they'd go to hell.
that's in sex ed.
Hold on. What state are you from?
California.
California.
They say that shit in California?
In an Orthodox Jewish school, yeah.
They sure
Oh,
did.
okay.
There's where it is. Because I was thinking, like, because in Delaware, when we had sex ed, I just had to stare at, like diagrams of dicks and vaginas.
No,
Like, I
they
can name-
no.
I can
They
name
split
every
up
part
the
of it.
girls
That
and
was
the
my-
guys. They split up the girls and the guys, and the
Yeah.
girls. They literally the only sex it was only just like use a condom and
No, it
every
was like
single
they would teach
time-
us about nida. Nida is this ritual
a good point.
in Jewish law where like if you're on your period, you're like impure and you're not allowed to touch a man. And
Oh,
yeah,
which is so
Fun.
shitty because period sex so good. Like,
well, like
like
that-
y'all are missing out.
I mean, look, you got to get your Red Wings somehow.
oh god.
All right, so
I have a
in case
question.
y'all
I have a
don't know, I'm
question.
the
I have a
one.
question for Ari. In terms of like growing up in a religious community and in that background of where if you're gay, you're going to hell. Do you think it has the opposite effect on like the youth and then it makes people question and then people want to leave the religion? That kind
For
of
sure,
mentality?
100%. I have
Mm.
it's a really strong thing, especially in Orthodox and modern Orthodox circles. It's like people would just rather not be religious anymore, not practice Judaism anymore, than
Mhm.
be and like have this feeling of like immense guilt or like they're doing something wrong or they're never going to
Yeah.
be the best Jew they can be. And that's true of like I have a close friend who like works really strongly within the Orthodox Jewish queer community, and like I support the work that they're doing. But they're just like, we need to change this like mindset or like you're gonna just lose all your kids because like if it comes between religion or being queer, like people are gonna leave the religion.
Mhm.
Which like
Mhm.
I relate to heavily.
Because I think there's a lot of suppression that goes on. Like I grew up, in a secular environment, and I never had religion thrust upon me. So I kind of view it all from like an academical point of view. I'm really fascinated by studying Torah and the New Testament and the Quran and the Hindu Vedas. It's all very fascinating to me, and I'm willing to look at it from a educational point of view. But I really do see the difference in kind of people growing up in this part of society and people growing up in another part of society. I was recently in Jerusalem about a month ago, and there's a new sort of trend going on within very strict ultra-Orthodox communities where women are now covering up Taliban style, completely from head to toe.
I've seen that.
And you
Like
can only
burqa?
see that. Yeah.
The
Full,
niqab, yeah.
Yeah,
full. And
they're making a
and
Jewish niqab over here. It's really weird.
and to me, as somebody who I believe in people's freedom, even to do that. I believe people are free to do whatever they want, and as long as you're following the law and you're not breaking the law, fine. But I just see it as something that completely negates religion and completely negates what they're actually trying to do. And in terms of modesty and these kind of things, it's just. And it saddens me. It really saddens me to see, and it saddens me to think that there's so many youth maybe going through what you two have been through. And I'm just wondering, what are the avenues that youth have? People to speak to, people to hear different points of views. Are there avenues to go down? Is there help out there? Is there people to speak to?
I mean, personally, I didn't know bisexuality was a thing until like I was in 11th grade.
Really?
Okay.
Like,
I thought you were about to say until like 20 minutes ago when I showed up.
no, it was like the summer between 10th and 11th grade. I had to Google it because I was like, someone told me they were bi. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
Wow.
Really? You didn't know? I knew what it was.
Mm-mm. And then I was like, oh, that's something I'm going to repress for another year.
Yeah.
But I don't know if like, what about you, Samantha?
Like, in my case, like, I've told you about the throwing gays off mountains quote. So there's that. I think in a lot of ways, like, it's like in my case, it drove me to more hate myself than anything. And like, I went through a long period of my life, just like the thing is, like, I was also like, I didn't want to like call myself gay, but because like, I still was into women. I still date women. But like, I also date men. And like, I was like under this high amount of like, I guess cognitive dissonance that I was like, I knew I was into men, but I wouldn't want to admit that to anybody. And like, that also kind of like turned into a whole nother thing with like, then when I actually started having relationships with men or at least having sex with men. And like early on, it was just a bunch of like, it was very much like very emotional to me because like this was so taboo in my head that I was like, I had such a mental block that I had to overcome that. And like the thing was, like I inevitably left the religion because like I had ginormous fallouts of my faith. Ended up starting to read the Quran, and like I don't know if anybody's like read the Quran, but like in this room, but like you get to Surat al-Baqarah, which is like the first chapter. It's the second chapter, but it's the first one everybody like reads, and you get right in there and it says non-believers do not believe because God has set a seal upon their heart, and they won't believe. And it's like, what the fuck? That kind of like ended it for me. Like I was like, oh, if God is like creating unbelievers to torture them forever, that just kind of like destroyed a lot of my faith. And then at that point I came to kind of accept that I was gay. And in a lot of like religious communities, like it's just highly like, it's highly punitively dealt with. Like I remember talking to like a Palestinian that I knew, and like we were like going out and we were like hanging out, and I said like, oh yeah, I know a gay Palestinian. I wasn't even talking about myself. I have another gay Palestinian friend, and like this person's like just like straight up looks at me like, oh well, they're not Palestinian, and I'm like, Jesus, though.
Gatekeeping level 100.
Wow, I didn't know that you're not.
Keep gaslight.
I mean, but that's the thing. Like in the West Bank, like the Palestinian Authority, like actually keeps tabs on gay people inside of the West Bank, and then uses them as informants on political activists, and they threaten them with being outed. That's like one of like the scariest things.
Whoa.
Terrible. That is
Wait,
terrible.
can you go into that? Because I'm not super aware of that. So if you could just like tell us more.
So yeah, there's an article on Vice about this, but essentially there is it was talking to a person named Saif who's in the West Bank, and like the point of for people that don't know, the point of the Palestinian Authority is in a lot of ways it's to police the Palestinians by proxy for the Israelis. Like they're like far more like torturous than even the Israeli like Shin Bet or like stuff like that. And so they're willing. It's kind of like how we put Abu Ghraib inside of Cuba, so we don't have to like give nearly the same level of human rights. And essentially, the Palestinian Authority will keep tabs on people and threaten these gay Palestinians with being outed to their families. And the thing is, like, being outed as gay in the Middle East can get you literally like extrajudicially killed. Like people will just take you and just.
That's how you get lynched.
Yeah, it's still a common thing. Like I remember, like when I came out to some of my family members, one of my family members is like doesn't know I'm an atheist and all that, and I don't want to like discuss that with him, but like he's like. He said like, yeah, I was wearing rings, just like rings on his fingers. And like, that's denoted as like kind of feminine in like Islam. And so like, he got chased by like one of our uncles, like with like a stick, and was like chasing him down like the street over just having like slight, like little, like for just being like slightly feminine. And like, imagine wanting to fuck men. That could definitely be like, that's like a next step above that.
Definitely. I just want to ask a quick question there, Samantha, because you said that there's extrajudicial killings and there's violence against the community, and it's something that's not just in Palestine. Although Israel is very, very liberal, and we do have a huge LGBTQ community, and we are kind of very progressive in certain aspects. Like I'm not sure if you're aware, there was recently a very famous Israeli football referee who recently transitioned from a man to become a lady, and everyone's really accepted her in society and like real plaudits. But then on the other side, there have been attacks specifically against people that have, tried to get away from religious communities, moved to Tel Aviv, something like that, and then people have chased them and committed acts. So I'd like to know, what do you think we can do as people? I'm not connected to the community. I haven't spoken to that many people. I'm not that aware of that many of the issues that are going on. What can we do to raise awareness and make people aware that these things are going on and it needs to be stopped, and we need to fight against it?
I mean, the biggest thing is just like education and like knowing about like these issues and talking to people that maybe not are like fully aware of like I've talked to like friends like now I'm like half white. I'm most likely not going to get killed in the United States for being trans, because that's typically what happens to like people that are like in lower socioeconomic conditions, and like it's typically like Black and Latinx trans women that are the primary targets of like killing. There are like obvious cases of, say, like Brandon Tina, like in 1999, that was like a very famous case that had a movie about her. Which I have issues with that movie, but for other reasons. But like a lot of this is, I think, like education is big, like knowing to talk about like what things actually impact queer people. Like I don't know what like specifically is the stuff with, I know like a lot about necessarily like Palestinian gay rights and American gay rights. So that's typically what I'm like talking to people about. Like, like technically speaking, in the West Bank, it is decriminalized to be gay. That is allowed in the West Bank. But I think it's the main gay organization inside of Palestine, inside the West Bank, because actually in the Gaza Strip, it's a death penalty if you're male. Females, like I guess they're not penalized. Good for them.
Yeah, it's not important enough. Not important enough to get the death penalty.
They're not people, so they can't be penalized.
Oh yeah,
exactly. Like, what are you're gonna penalize a squirrel? What's the point?
But yeah, the main gay rights organization was wanted to host a meetup of like members, and the Palestinian Authority literally blocked them and said, you are inciting public reaction, and this is not good. And like, we're just meeting in a coffee house, guys. What the fuck? And like,
it's not a pride event going through Ramallah, and that's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, if we can't get a pride parade through Jerusalem without a single stabbing, I don't think you're gonna get anything in Ramallah. Oh
no, not at all. Like, that's the thing. Like, I also kind of like relate. Like, the Middle East feels very reminiscent of like how the America was, and like how America was in like the 1950s. Like, I recently read a book called The Lavender Scare, which is all about like for one thing, like most people that were fired for being quote unquote communists are actually also gay. Like that was like a big thing about it. And like there are like whole conversations from FBI agents talking about like, oh yeah, this one guy, when we informed him, we found out he was gay, and we informed their workplace to get them fired. The guy just walked out onto the street and just shot himself. And the FBI agent was like laughing about this in the interview. Like he was like, and it's like, to me, I'm like, that's kind of similar to how a lot of like Palestinian culture will see gay issues. Like, oh, well, once you started doing that, they don't really give a shit about like human rights for you. Like, it's kind of like somewhat like, oh God, like the book that made me like, I call myself a militant gay because of the fact that like I'm very pro LGBT. A militant gay. A militant gay is a person that's just telling you like, hey, I don't like to die.
You're militant in that you refuse to die. I like that.
Yeah, Larry. Like, so that was like the thing. Like, Larry Kramer is an AIDS activist back in the 80s, and like he remembers going to like Dachau, like when he was feeling really dispirited during like the AIDS crisis, because he was like nobody's doing anything, and this is like really depressing to me. And so he goes. This is in the book, and the band played on for people that want to know. And he goes and reads the plaque of Dachau, and he was like, "Wait a minute, this was started in 1933, right after Hitler was chancellor." And then he's like, "They've been killing Jews, gays, and Catholics for 8 years, and nobody said a fucking word." And then he's like, "Wait, how could people just say nothing?" And he's like, "Wait a minute, this is something that happens with gay people in the United States still today, that people just kind of don't regard them as like full class citizens." And like this even goes to like the first American politician that was elected in the United States was Harvey Milk, and he got assassinated, and the guy that assassinated him got off on manslaughter. Like,
yeah,
that's like the history of gay rights in America, like in a short little thing. Like gay rights only started really becoming, in like my opinion, like a big thing in like the 2010s. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
I would say it was very successful too. Like I think about that a lot because it kind of gives me hope, because I think if you look at the way American society was in like 2005 versus like 2021, you know, with how people, you know, everyone was opposing gay marriage. Now I almost, what did they say? 75% of Republicans even support it now. So
yeah.
what do you think, like, what was the key to success there? How did they do that? How can we manufacture that in other countries?
Or even for here, for peace in the Middle East, it would be great.
I think it's a lot. Like personally, I think it's a lot of people have friends and family that have been open about being queer, being gay, or being trans, and doing that. They're like, "Oh well, I don't want them to be illegal." So, and like not only that, but like especially like it's like been very prominent in like cis gay rich white communities. And because like they have like a lot more social standing and social capital, it's become more mainstream more quickly.
Yeah. As much as like I hate her to death, Caitlyn Jenner's like public transition of sorts probably did a lot just in like, I remember watching like the I Am Kate show like back in like when I was 19 and I was still like having weird gender feels. And there's like a conversation that like I remember in the show that like one of the parents has like, "Oh, I have like I shouldn't be mad that like my kid's transgender. I have like a fucking unicorn as a goddamn kid, and I should like be like happy that like I'm willing to like to, you know, help out my child in this way." And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, why couldn't certain family members of mine go and say that about me? And that's where I was like, teary-eyed moment, just like, but showing that awareness, like, was kind of comparable, but it was good. Like, I think, like, just kind of like the representation of people is like a big thing, and I think, I don't know, gay rights is like a.
Hold on, wait, speaking of representation, can I just go on to a slight tangent because I never get to talk about this with anybody because all my friends are straight.
Go on.
That's unfortunate, but go on.
Yeah, it is. It just works out like that. Why is it that whenever you see a gay male in a movie, he's always an uber flamboyant stereotype, but however, like whenever there's like gay women, like they can be whatever they want. They can be bisexual or anything. They can be feminine, masculine, whatever the hell. Like I feel like it, like women get better representation in media when it comes to just gay shit. I'm saying I never get to see a bisexual man, and I'm always mad about it.
Isn't there one in what's it called? That TV show. I am blanking on the name. There it's kind of like The Office, but it's not here. Let me see if I can find it.
It's a good point though to make that in films, there's always like the typical gay guy that is like the caricature of what it's like being gay, and I had a buddy in the army who was gay. You never would have known in a million years. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that he told me is just he felt comfortable with me to be like, oh yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like,
In the army, if we request it, we get our own personal showering time.
oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
That's
wild.
amazing.
Yeah. I
I would always
the
be like,
reason-
yeah, I would. Like,
I didn't request it, but the reason why it's there is because the most violent form of homophobic attack is sexual assault, and the most common place that happens is in the showers. You're already all naked.
Wow.
Yeah, but I didn't request it. I felt very comfortable with my guys over there. Yeah, they're very loving. So
that's good to hear, I guess.
yeah.
Oh god. like the thing is, like the first discussions of bisexual people, specifically men, in the media, like in the United States, for context, talks about how straight women should be worried about their partners if they're bisexual, because that's how purportedly AIDS got spread to straight women, was a cheating partner who like would fuck men on the side. And you know, this was still at the point people were still not really talking about the fact that like intravenous drug use is a thing that people that caused AIDS, and also like the blood industry up until like 1984 was like in denial that AIDS could be passed through blood, like through blood transmission, because they're like, oh no, obviously we sanitize the blood, we put it through a sieve that causes, and it's like viruses are really tiny, can get past that, and they didn't know what HIV was yet. So
yeah, we filter it all through Bill. Bill is the straightest man ever. His body gets to do all the AIDS, back out on the other end.
God,
I imagine that's what they did.
Oh God,
So I'm curious, Samantha. I know I've stalked your Twitter a little bit, and I know that a lot of times Palestinian queer people, as you said, feel like there's this pressure that Palestinian queers are often seen as collaborators with Israelis, or like betraying the Palestinian cause. And what do you hope? Because it's kind of like they're dealing with, you know, as we all know, the Israeli occupation, and they're dealing with also being marginalized in their own society. Like, what is, do you have like an ideal world? Like, what solution would you see?
Like for it to be like where it is where I live today, in like Oregon or Washington, like, but that's pie in the sky. Wait 50 years, maybe we'll start talking about this. But like the thing is, like my hope is that, like, you know, conversion therapy stops, and like the thing is, like, to me, a lot of this is because of like religious oppression as well. And like I wonder in a different world where like secularism actually won out in the Middle East. But I don't know like how much people like know like the history of like Muslim countries and in the Middle East, but like the Middle East like only got super religious in like the 80s and 90s with the onset of like the failure of secular societies. Partly this is because like a lot of those secular societies went to war with Israel and lost a bunch.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry we refused to die.
Yeah, it happens.
No, you're very right. You're very right.
Yeah.
You know, Lebanon was very liberal back in the 60s and 70s, and there has been.
It's still pretty liberal.
Lebanon's so liberal.
It still is, but
that's where you are.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in the Hezbollah area, it's not liberal at all. You're not going to be around liberal people. But if you're in Beirut in a bougie cafe, then maybe yeah. But this is the issue we have in the Middle East, where we've actually done an episode about it, guys. You know, religion versus atheism. Can they live together? It's my belief they can, because I have friends from like all the different kind of communities, ranging from ultra Orthodox to just, you know, a little bit religious to not at all. And I really do think it's about accepting other people's ideologies and just learning to live, accepting that this person thinks X, Y, Z, and the other person thinks a bit differently to it. I think it's a process, though. Like you said, you guys were saying that in America it happened in 2010, right? Roughly, the kind of big uptick, right? So maybe it's possible that we can have that over here as well, and people can push for it, and it's something that we can see more of, because we definitely need to work on it over here in this region of the world, because it's definitely, like you guys are saying, it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue.
Yeah. Also, Ari, have you found my bi boy representation yet?
Your what representation?
My bi boy representation. You were going to go find me the name of the show.
Oh, I did. It was Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
I love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
That's right.
Oh, that show's amazing.
I mean, if you want some,
how long has it been since I've seen that?
If you want some more bi boy representation, this is a video game, but you'll take it where it comes, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
If you play Borderlands 2, the character Axton, which you can play as, there's like a quote in the game where somebody was like, "What are you gonna do with your share of the loot?" And he's like, "I'm gonna buy a bunch of guns. Spend it on some girls and a few guys as well."
I mean, look, I'll take that. I mean, really, the best bi representation I had in a video game was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Takes place in ancient Greece, which is already gay as hell, gloriously so. And I decided, because it's a very RPG-like game, I decided to play my game. I was like, you know what? I'm going to play as Alexios, and I'm going to make him the biggest man whore in all of Greece.
There's also Fallout New Vegas. You can play as a bisexual character in that game.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I think the solution is we all just live in video games.
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't want to live in most video games. I could see myself maybe living in Animal Crossing.
Really? I would be so bored in Animal Crossing. I would be so bored.
That's basically my life right now anyways, so.
Is it really?
I live with two other gay friends, and we have we have multiple raised garden beds and animals and friends that visit and stuff.
I'm Ari's token straight friend.
You really are. I'm just like Anna. I'm like, Anna, are you sure though? Are you sure?
Are you positive, Anna?
You guys are funny.
Have you interrogated it?
Maybe just look deep inside. You can find something.
God.
I mean, I don't know about you, Anna, but it's a miracle I have no idea how to dress, because I was so far in the closet for so long. You think I would have picked up some fashion tips in there, but no. It's just t-shirts and jeans.
So, okay. Other questions, going back to, I think, the religion thing again. What was, for you guys, the first moment? Well, you talked about the moment where you stopped kind of believing in the Quran. Ari, what was it for you? I don't know if there was a moment I stopped believing. I think there was just so much guilt and sadness over, because I was so Orthodox for even well into college, I was really Orthodox. Yeah, you really did it. I remember that. And you were Orthodox when I was already secular. And I remember you were, to give you an idea, for Orthodox people is we can't eat foods that most people eat. We have to eat things that are have a certification that it's kosher, which makes it really, really hard to eat. And you were doing that in college and skipping all these days of class for the holidays. Yeah, I was skipping all the days of class. I was keeping Shabbat, and I wasn't turning lights off and on Shabbat. So I didn't see anyone on the weekends. Genuinely, it was a lot, and I think it was really hard, and I was doing it a lot out of habit, and I think I stopped. I don't know if it's necessarily when I stopped believing, but I stopped really caring.
is when I actually visited my sister. And she, like, I just saw, like, it took them, like, 2 weeks to plan a beach trip because they had to deal with, like, so many tiny details. Like, they had to go to, like, one of the gender-separated beaches, and then they had to, like, figure out food, and they had to figure out, like, transportation in a way that, like, they wouldn't touch, in a way that, like, it was just so many tiny details. I'm like, you know, y'all could just literally just go to the beach. Like, it doesn't need to be like this. And then I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
So, and then I, like, turned lights off and on Shabbat, and I was like, oh. And like since there, I've kind of been like branching out, and I still don't know like if I'm like agnostic or an atheist or whatever. I like the culture. Like I have a lot of like cultural ties to Judaism, but outside of that, not really anything I'm like spiritually connected to.
I see that it's a very interesting process to like go from, because it's almost like one extreme to the other. And I'm just thinking from my experience, for me, the army was kind of a melting pot of Israeli society. So I got to meet people from all different sectors of society. And one of the sectors that I got to meet in the army was the more religious community that I hadn't been exposed to that much. And people that did, keep distance between men and women and that kind of stuff. And the reason the day it all hit me that we've been growing up in two complete different worlds was a religious guy who was 19 years old. And he was actually like, above me in the army. He came over and he was like, "Oh, hey, Amir, how's it going?" I was like, "Oh, good. What's up?" And he wanted to talk about something a bit personal. And I said, "Yeah, sure. Like, go ahead. No worries." And he said, "Amir, what's it like to touch a girl?" And this guy is 19 years old.
He really said that to you?
Honestly, it was the sweetest thing. Like anyone.
That's so weird, though.
But it was the sweetest. It came from like such a innocent and pure place. Like he was genuinely like wanting to know. Like he was literally, And I think in response,
hug
I was
his sisters. I don't know.
It's different. It's different though.
I feel like
did he mean like physical, like touching, like tap on the shoulder, or did he mean sexual?
I think he just meant like physical touch, like with a woman. He didn't know what it was, and because I didn't want to like spoil anything for him or say anything, or I was like, "Look, man, you're gonna find out when the time is right, and you're gonna get married, and the kind of, because that's the route he was going down, right? I don't want to disrupt anything, but it's at that point that I realized how different our education was, and how different people's education is here actually in the Holy Land. It's very, very varied, and I do think we need to do more to get people to understand different ideologies, because I think that's where the disconnection is coming, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is there a similar rule in Islam about like touching opposite sex?
Oh, you're not like, you're supposed to. There's a really funny meme about this, but you're supposed to not like, first look is halal, but once you see like a girl that you're into, you look down. There's like a whole trigonometry memes. 45. Amir is 175 centimeters tall, and he's staring at a 45-degree angle down towards Amira's feet. What is solve for X? Becomes a math problem.
Honestly, if that's how they taught me in school, I probably would have paid more attention. Just saying.
I think that's what it works, because like I went to all girls school for a little bit, because
really
for a period of time, and
what's
like
it like in there?
it's hell on earth. I hated that place.
That place was really bad for you. It was so bad for you.
I did not like all girls school at all, but like the logic behind like why they separate everything is like, God forbid you should like have a boyfriend in high school. Yeah, you know, it's like that.
So funny because I know what the Eulikins got up to.
That's the thing is like our community was like there was a lot of things that like would happen. There was like a big gap between what we were officially like told to do and what actually went on behind the scenes too.
I mean, that's typically how it goes. With,
that's
like,
why I'm
these sort of religious institutions, like what even what the rabbi, priest, or imam says. You know, once he gets closes his front door behind him, he goes right upstairs and just gets this gigantic dildo out of his drawer. That's exactly what they're all doing.
So funny story. Like I went to a mosque growing up, and the son of the imam. Like I used to party with him and get super drunk with him all the time.
No way.
That's it. That's how it goes.
There was like no joke. There was like this is like always like a story I love telling, which is like it was like me and a few other Muslim friends. We're all smoking weed together. Like we're all pretty high, and then one of the dudes was like takes a drag of like the joint we have and is like, wait guys, is this haram? Which is like and I'm like, guy, dude, come on, what are you? It'll all wash away when you do Hajj. Don't worry about it.
Oh my god! If only we Jews had something like that.
We do. We have Yom Kippur.
Oh, it's Yom Kippur.
But then there's the Jewish.
Yeah, you get rid of all your sins on.
Well, you get judged for all your sins.
You get judged, and then you get rid of them. You go and you throw them away in like a river. You take like
some fish.
Oh, and then you like kill a chicken so that so that God smites the chicken instead of you or something like that.
Well, you know what?
No, but what I find funny,
I'm gonna say fuck that chicken. He deserves it. Guy was a dick.
What I find funny about Yom Kippur is like, okay, you have this one day for atonement. So does that mean the rest of the time you can just get up to whatever you want? You can sin away, you can kill, you can go on a mad one, you can, and then it's okay. You did Kippur, you fasted, you're good. You're good.
It reminds me of like this meme where it was like, if you don't sin, Jesus died for nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? Nobody has to worry about that. I'm doing it enough for everybody. So.
That's a good one.
I think all of you would know this better than me, but like, so this is always something I've wondered about. Like, so in Arabic, there's a word called zina, which means adultery, but it also means fornication. It like has the same meaning, or it doesn't have the same meaning. It's just a dual meaning to one word. Does Hebrew have something like that?
We do indeed. We do indeed. But it's just it's said a little bit differently. It's not zana, it's more zona. Zona.
It's a curse word. It means prostitute.
Oh shit.
You would oh my god, you could literally understand it because it's so similar to Arabic. We would say like one of the most common curse words is ben zona. So
son of a whore,
That's it.
I remember hearing what's it called, Natalie Portman speak Hebrew one time. She was saying she was speaking Hebrew, but then she just says kusumnak, and I'm like, that's Arabic. That's just
we say that.
That's an Arabic. That comes right from Arabic.
Anna and I both learned Arabic in university, and like it was so easy for me to pick up because it's just so close to Hebrew.
It's half the words. It's crazy. Like we're all like killing each other over this stupid like thing, and it's like, do you realize that like we must have like come from the same exact people to have such a similar freaking language? Like,
we did.
It's funny you mentioned that, Anna. I was watching a program earlier about like undercover, Jewish Israeli agents in Palestine. Kind of Fauda style. Let's call it Fauda style. And I was just thinking to myself, the fact that we can get people in those situations, doesn't that just show how close we are? Like in terms of the fact that people can get away with just going in and pretending to be completely somebody that they're not, and people not thinking anything of it.
You know what those units are called? They're called Mistaravim. Mistaravim. Those who become like Arabs, named after an era in Jewish history way back in the day. when the Umayyad Caliphate first rose, where there was a high level of Jewish thought in the Islamic Caliphate, and so it was called the Mista'arabi era, because like there was just so much, because there was such an overlap between Jewish and Islamic scholarship.
It's so interesting. Like having Jewish family from a Muslim country, it's also so like it really does, like you really feel like the influence too, and even the way like also Islam is so influenced by Judaism. Judaism is so influenced by Islam. Look, we both oppress our women. We both hate gays. Yeah. I think they have more in common.
But no, even in terms of like, you know, traditions and like things that come from the religion, you know, even with regards to kosher meat, halal meat, there's so many similarities that are there that people either they're not aware of or they're just blind to, and they don't really understand.
Because they just don't want to admit it.
Yeah, they don't want to admit it, or they've got a fear of the other, which is, you know, often the case.
But I mean, it's pretty weird because religiously, if you look at it, Judaism and Islam have a lot more in common than either one does with Christianity. I mean, hell, even the Jewish conception of faith is way closer to the Islamic conception of the word than you get anything out of Christianity.
Well, Jared, yeah, no, you're right, Jared. And I think there's a reason for that as well. I might be mistaken, but I do believe that one of Muhammad's close friends was a guy called Ka'ab, who was a Jewish exile from a Yemenite community that may have taught him, you know, a lot of things about the religion and stuff like that. And maybe things got mixed in and you know, because at the end of the day, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, although they differ, the core fundamentals are pretty much the same, you know, if you're looking at the main commandments, you know, if we're not looking at...
I think in a lot of ways, like I don't believe in the religion anymore, so I don't have any like but like I do very much think that like Islam is just like a Arab fanfic of like of Judaism and Christianity. What's actually like really interesting is like Islam has stuff from heretical gospels. Like there's a story in the Quran about Jesus turning birds of clay into real birds, and like that's from like a lost gospel in like the 800s. And it's like a really, well, not the 800s, probably came way before, but the one we have is from the 800s, blah, blah, blah. Anyway. Like, there's like, I mean, like, I don't know if Ka'ab is the guy's name. There's a lot of people that Muhammad interacted with that were Jewish, and he also fought with Jewish tribes. And like, if you read the Quran, there's parts where people are literally questions that are posed from Jewish leaders towards Muhammad. I don't understand so if you like read Muhammad's biography, I actually have a copy with me, not with me right now, but I have a copy in my house. Somewhere. It's but you get like these conversations where they're like, well, we need to decipher who is a true prophet, and like, go ask the Jews, they would know what a true prophet is. And it's like I'm like, okay, that obviously, okay, that's interesting, but so, and then they're like, okay, go, and then they go to a Jewish leader. The only like Ka'ab, the person I'm thinking of when you say Ka'ab is like this guy named Ka'ab bin Asad, which is one of the chiefs of the Banu Qurayza, and who got massacred by Muhammad after the Battle of the Trench.
I think that's him. I think he was killed.
Yeah. There's a Jewish rabbi that he literally consults after the Battle of Khaybar, which that's a whole other story. But like after saying Sa'd bin Mu'adh. Sorry?
Is it Khaybar ya Yahud Jayesh Muhammad?
Oh yeah, yep, that's the one. Yep, Khaybar ya Yahud Jayesh Muhammad. It's either Sayyid or Safayud.
What does that mean?
Khaybar is that's the town that got sacked by Muhammad. Context: it's a Jewish town that got sacked. literally, it's actually like, I argue with like Muslim friends of mine, like, no, Muhammad did do some warmongering. Like, no, he didn't. And I'm like, here is literally his biography. And it says he waited in the morning to hear people do the call to prayer. And if he didn't hear, he would invade. That's literally what it says. Like, it's like straight up, like, don't argue this with me. Anyway, I go and talk to, I was like, Khaybar, Ya Yahud, O the Jews, Jesh, army, Jaish Muhammad, so Muhammad's army, Safa Ya'ud, or Sayyud means will return. So, O Jews, the Prophet Muhammad's army is coming. There's a lot of.
They like to kind of chant that sometimes in very radical places and stuff like that. It gets chanted around there a lot, and Itbah El Yaud Gam as well.
There's also
this is what we're fighting against. Samantha, it's amazing how aware you are of all these things, and this is exactly the stuff that we're trying to fight against and make people aware of, and how intertwined our histories are. And it's just such a shame, because I know how good like Israelis and Palestinians could live here together. I really do. I can see it. It's just about solving the conflict, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Oh God. But I mean, like, so the thing is, like, I find I'm probably like, I could be the farthest to the left on like this issue. Like, I tend to like agree with like Noam Chomsky and Norman Finkelstein and people like that typically. Like, that's kind of a lot of my politics. Yeah, no, I'm very far to the left.
That's pretty far left. That's further than me, and I'm like, how dare you take my lefty position? On this show.
It's weird that like talking in the United States to Americans, like, people are like, oh, there's no way to solve the issue or anything like that. Like, the original like Camp David peace accords was brought together because of the fact that like the George H.W. Bush government basically said, we're not going to fund settlement projects unless you bring the Palestinians to the table. And it brought the Rabin government to it's Shamir at that time. It's Shamir. Yeah. And they brought Shamir to the table, who really did not want to go and actually talk with the Palestinians, because like, I could be like, I know a little bit about Israeli history, but like Shamir is
Shamir was a Likudnik, which is a right-wing level of Zionist. He was specifically a revisionist Zionist. Very much.
Yeah, he was like Zev Jabotinsky and Matt Begin kind of types. Yeah. But like that's like in a lot of the ways I'm like, if people want to like start like a Middle East peace process, that's like my like go-to is like, we should do that, condition U.S. aid on like an actual peace process.
Yeah,
I know that makes a lot of sense.
I think I was gonna say the episodes typically run for about as long as this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're just getting to the good stuff.
Yeah, I know. We just got to the U.S. aid, which we don't really need anymore. I mean, honestly, as an Israeli, when I look at American aid, it's just an excuse for the U.S. government to try to keep us under their thumb. Because I mean, most of the aid we get from the U.S. is in the form of like in-store coupon that we can only spend inside the United States. So they're not funding us; they're funding their own economy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't even know this. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because like most people think when the U.S. gives like aid packages, they think they're just giving Israel sacks of money. It's like, no, they're just saying like
you can buy our weapons.
Yeah, you can buy weapons. Here's in-store credit. Like, that's what the aid is, and that's the reason why. And like that's the reason why Israel's been building up its own military industry, so that way we're not reliant on them the way we were in the past.
Yeah.
Anybody got any final remarks before I smack the show out of existence?
No, I think that's good. It's been so wonderful talking with y'all.
Yeah,
this was a lot of fun.
this is fun. And if you guys ever want to come on again or like listen to future episodes, you're always welcome.
Yeah, where can you guys be
Definitely.
found?
Definitely.
YouTube mainly.
And also Samantha has a YouTube channel. I don't if you want to plug your channel. I watched some
definitely.
videos. They're pretty.
Oh,
I was very thoroughly entertained. I have to ask,
yeah.
Samantha,
I
are
like
you
you
a
if you can.
ContraPoints fan?
Yeah, I'm a big country. Well,
I-
okay, so
I was getting
love
the
her.
influence.
I
like
love her.
yeah, so like my videos are like they're ContraPoints-esque, I guess you could say, but like I also have a lot of criticisms I have for ContraPoints, but it like
Yeah.
that's a like 4 or 5 videos down the line. I'm currently watching and like really going like into a deep dive of her content, and like I'm gonna like talk about some stuff I kind of disagree with her, and there's a lot of stuff. But yes, she has a major influence on my productive stuff.
Ooh, I'm so. I do have to ask also one more question, because I know that this is. I know you said you're a leftist, and I know that in some ex-Muslim circles, because I just follow their pages a lot, there's kind of this feeling that the left is a little bit like too kind to Islam. Do you agree with that, or what's your take on that?
Ooh. So as an ex-Muslim, so like I am in a few ex-Muslim organizations as well, so that's always a really wild thing. But I don't like. This is one of those things that's really like difficult, because there's like an obvious alt-right pipeline from ex-Muslims to like alt-right, like, and it's pretty easy because like the thing is like free speech is super like hit hard in the Middle East widely, so it's always something that like a lot of ex-Muslims will defend, even like in the same. It's kind of like how like Noam Chomsky can make the mistake of defending a Holocaust denier, and that's kind of forever on his record now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like I do like somewhat agree with it, because like a lot of like this is a thing. It's kind of like this is like getting into a whole topic of intersectionality in general. A lot of stuff like when we talk about issues, we're almost always just talking about it from one lens, but like it's like if you're wanting to fight for social liberalism and wanting a more free society, it's very hard to actually want to win a free society over when like I don't know, like yes, I will say this, like, yeah, it's a thing that's in a lot of ex-Muslim circles. To make this short, because this could go on forever and I'm rambling and I don't have a good full thought out plan on this.
Yeah. Hey, you can come on. We could do another episode all about intersectionality.
To be
Yeah,
continued.
for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was like,
just
I don't
wanna-
have a good point.
Yeah, I just want to mention, Samantha, Ari, it's been a real pleasure having you on the Open Peace podcast, and you're both welcome back anytime. It'll be a real pleasure. And yeah, I've learned a lot from this conversation, and I'm hoping that our viewers have as well, and can take something from what we've talked about today.
Yeah. I fucking loved it. This was been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this has
Yeah,
been
thank
good.
you. And yeah, keep in touch. Wish you all the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, hey, I'm the one who dismisses.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't know, Jared.
I know
they haven't-
that's okay. They'll
What's the
learn.
closing? What's the closer?
The closer. Well, I mean, first off, Amir has to be ready.
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
Are you
know
ready?
me.
Oh,
You know me.
all right. Push out the table. Hold up. All right.
Oh.